Hey, people. In that last movie, I told y'all what I think about people thumping the King James Bible. And it drove me back to Genesis. And I told you I was going to read that first day in the Greek. And everybody thinks they already know what it says, but I can promise you don't. You can't even get the second word right. Because they got this right, end. But this is not the beginning. This is the rule. You see it plain as day here in the Greek, the ARXH, to rule, to government. So Genesis 1 is not the beginning. Genesis 1 is to rule, to rule the creation. And this is a word they get right. They just pronounce it wrong. But back to this rule here. You know it's rule. If you go down to the two great lights to rule over the day, you see it's changed to beginnings, the arches over the day, and to arches over the night, to beginnings. And you think it says to rule because that's the way they interpreted the Hebrew, is to rule the day and to rule the night. But when they wrote that King James, that's what they did. They switched back and forth between different Bibles and selected words to interpret how they wanted. But it wasn't luminary lesser for beginnings. It was the luminary lesser to rule the night. So in the Hebrew, they call the first chapter the beginning because in the ancient book, this word was on top that they have interpreted as the beginning, but it's not. It's in receipt to bear. And the receipt to bear is the owner, the one who bears receipt, one who paid for it. But in the Greek, it's called the creation, and that's because this book ain't as old, and people knew that that's what this word meant. And so this word is the fees in. I was telling you that last movie that I found this OI combination. You just replace it with an E, and everything fits. And so that's where that comes from. That's where the word feasible comes from. Feasible is doable. Feasible meaning to do, and able, the ability to do, doable. Hey, I can do that. That's feasible. And you see that's what it says is to make, to do, a fees. And so they're squishing this together. The is coming from this O here, which is not the. This is of. And you see it in all the ancient Greek writings. And then the God is what they say this is. And so this is pronounced those. And you pronounce it by, turning your head away and rolling your eyes up and looking up above, those above us. In rule, a fees and of those above us. To now ran on. The ones that are now in control with engine. With engine, in rule, in arch, a feason of those to now run on with engine. And so the ones that were running is the 8 degenerados, the 8 degenerado kings. And so they'll say this H here is the, and it's not. They got too many other words they say is the. But at this time, everybody knew that Edda meant 8. The 8 degenerado kings. And so this degenerado, it's kind of making fun of the word, but this is D, and it doesn't mean but. They say it means but there's too many other words. They say mean but and now. Mostly key, meaning and, which it does. But this means remove, D, removed, earth, G, to remove earth on, HN, on, and remove the earth on, that's the jinn, the spirits, they're not from earth, remove, and the 8 removed earth on, and the orados, and so this is a double negative, the A and the D here, but an orator is a speaker, and the orados are the speakings, what's being said and the A-arados are what's not being said. And so, everything was created with the word, so if it hadn't been said yet, it was unseen is where they're getting that out of. And so the 8 that were removed the earth on, not spoken, the unspoken names. Vav, replace the key with a Vav, Aka, Vaka. Vaka means the cow in every language in the world. Vaka, and the Vaka task who has to. The Vaka task who has to is the milkmaids, 8. The 8 degenerado milkmaids. And so milk is your Hebrew word for king, the Vaka task, the cow's task to milk, and who has to, the ones doing the milking. So when you're singing your 12 days of Christmas, this is where your 8 maids of milking come from. But the earth was unseen and unready. And the 8 degenerado kings, and was, WS was, and was coats, and was his coats, and if, EF, if. His coats, if on it is busy of. His coat's real busy, the coat of many colors. And his coat, if on it was busy of. And this is up, UP, up. And the NE becomes a BE, and it's the U or the Vav or the key, and the P and the N are up in, and up in who, and the Spirit of God is what's up in who, and up in who, a math, M-A-T-H, up in math, how, and so math means, when it talks about the filthiness in the Hebrew Bible, that would be the mathematical, the one who collects what that means, math. And his coat upon that is a busy. It's real busy of up in whom a math, the collect, how, the prefer it to. This is where you were perforated. Perforated paper is going to rip where it's prefer, where you prefer it to. The select to, the prefer it to. And so then this is now up on. And it's because the O, the E following the O becomes a Vav, a U. And so now this is up on. It's not always the same word. It depends on where it's at. Up on it of a date as. The date is the water. The time is always moving. It's motion. So in rule, in arch, the fees in, the made in, the creation, in rule the creation of those, to now ran on with engine, it's automatic turning with the engine. And the 8 degenerado whack a task who has to's, as coat as if on it is a busy of. Up in who math, how the prefer it to, upon it of a date as. Talking about astrology. And then, this is wise in. And you can read it as hip in, means knowing, and wise in, and the hip in, and knowing of those. The jinn knit to, and this is Egyptian word, knit, neath is the one that's underneath, and she weaves the skies every night. She's a spider that weaves the web of stars. And let there be, that's knit. And she the jinnit, she's creation. The jinn, the creation it to. The jinn neath it to. A cause, we. And this could be read jeeve as in serve to or sieve to. And so they knew that the stars being ginned every night are the cause we serve to the cause. The cosmos serve to what happens on earth. The cause be from cause, because. And so these 8 immortals, not from earth, these were worldwide known as the 8 jinn. You know, the 8 drunken immortals, the 8 degenerates, the 8 degenerate kings. And it was worldwide. It comes from the oldest religion. And it was known to Christians and Jews and Muslims. Everybody knew about the 8 drunken immortals. And so my head ain't feeling so good. I'll get back to this later. But I want to show you all this cool book I found. And the proper pronunciation for this would be the Magician, C-O-N, son, the Magician. And it's the wonderful prophecies concerning a popery, popery, to rule over the people, a popery. And you see at the end of it, it has a couple predictions of what happened to New York and what happened to California. And the way they see it, that the New Jerusalem is going to be in California. And it's going to have about 20 pages, going to talk about the history of prophets and how they come about, how they get their prophecy. And then it's going to have these 24 pictures and explanations about prophecies having to do with the Pope and the downfall of the Catholic Church. And you see these prophecies of America at the end here, the end of the world and the new earth. And I'll leave the link to this book underneath here. It's free books at Google Books. And I'll get back to what I was reading when my head feels better. I'm going to cut this off here. Good day.